Hello and welcome to my study here in Tuam for another Thursday Devotional. Today is the 31st of March 2022. I greet each and every one of you in the glorious and wonderful and all-powerful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. This week I had an interesting call from a lady that we've known for a good while, who listened to my devotional on St. Patrick. And she had some interesting information for me. She told me that her ancestors, who go by the family name of Caulfield, were related to Nile of the 9 hostages. He was involved in the kidnapping of St. Patrick when he was brought to Ireland. I don't think that Nile of the 9 hostages or the Caulfields who kidnapped St. Patrick and brought him to Ireland, or even St. Patrick himself, expected good to come from this bad situation. And yet it did. Patrick became the apostle of Ireland. Patrick, after he escaped back to England, found God's call strong upon his life to go into ministry and come back to Ireland and spread the gospel. And he forever influenced the history of Ireland. Many Irish Christians and monks have gone out over the centuries into the modern day to bring the gospel to areas around the world, bringing hope to people. Expect the unexpected. We all may be familiar with the story, the history of Joseph, the young boy sold into slavery, who eventually became the second most powerful man in Egypt, who was able to save his family and Israel in a time of severe drought when they would have otherwise faced bankruptcy or death. His brothers who sold him into slavery were fearful when they found out that the Prime Minister of Egypt was their brother that they sold into slavery. And they cautiously addressed him and asked really for his forgiveness and leniency. His reply to them was quite unexpected. He said to them, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so that I could save the lives of many." We don't always see things, or very seldom see things, God's way. And when we go through bad, difficult, trying circumstances, it's difficult to see the hand of God. But we've got to see God in our situation. Patrick could have said the same thing to his kidnappers. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good, and he brought me to this position so that I could save the lives of many." Friend, you may find yourself in difficult and challenging situations that you never expected to come your way. These circumstances may seem intent on bringing you harm, but can you believe beyond your situation that God can bring good out of it, not only for your sake, but for the sake of others? We never must forget the fact, but God. God can where we can't see beyond. God can take us beyond and bring good out of bad. I can look back on some parts of my life and say, what the enemy of my soul intended for my harm, God intended for good. and He brought me to where I am today, so that through me He could touch the lives of others. And I'm sure that many of you listening can say the same thing. One of the essentials that needs to be part of our lives as we go through these bad times, as we keep our eyes on God, expecting good to come out of the bad, is to be able to rejoice in God, to realize that God is our strength. The prophet Habakkuk found his nation in dire circumstances. And in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 3, verses 17 to 19, we read these words of his. Even though the fig trees have no blossoms and there are no grapes on the vines, even though the olive crops fail and the fields lie empty and barren, even though the flocks lie dead in the fields and the cattle barns are empty, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the God of my salvation. He was able to look beyond his circumstances and see the salvation of God. Verse 19, he says, "The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes me sure-footed as a deer, able to tread upon the heights." My friend, if you're going through difficult circumstances and the surface beneath your feet seems very unsure, may you experience God making you as sure-footed as the deer that Habakkuk speaks about. King David in Psalm 27 declares this in verses 13 and 14. "Yet I am confident I will see the goodness of the Lord while I am here in the land of the living." Wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. Can we, like Patrick, can we, like Joseph, can we, like Habakkuk and David, see God within our circumstances, see God bringing good out of our circumstances and our difficulties? Can we be confident that we will see the goodness of the Lord? I trust you and I can. So let's take David's advice in whatever circumstances we find ourselves at the moment and wait patiently for the Lord. Let's be brave and courageous and wait patiently for the Lord. Let's trust His grace to sustain us through whatever it is we may be going through. Not only for our good, but for the good of many others and for the glory of God. God bless you and God keep you all always in His amazing grace until we meet again next week. Bye-bye.